Good evening. We'll call this regular meeting of council for Monday, May 26, 2014 to order. I'll ask council to consider the recommendation that the regular meeting be suspended and that the committee of the whole meeting be convened. Moved by Councillor Ashley, seconded by Councillor Carlick-Pearson. Any discussion? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That motion passes. I'll refer everybody to the Committee of the Whole agenda. The first item is the adoption of the agenda. The recommendation is that the agenda for the Committee of the Whole meeting of May 26, 2014 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Ashley, seconded by Councillor Kinney. Discussion? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That is also adopted. The next item is the question period from the public, and I'll read the statement of procedures for the Committee of the Whole meeting. For those of you present this evening, and for those watching via television, the Committee of the Whole meeting is a committee that consists of all members of council. This meeting allows council members to deal with issues in greater detail, but is less formal than a regular council meeting. During this meeting, issues are not formally adopted, but recommendations are made at the next regular council meeting. At this time, the recommendations of the previous Committee of the Whole meetings will be adopted and acted upon. Some key points to remember when making your request are: meetings are televised, and it's very important for you to introduce yourself and, if applicable, the name of the organization you are representing, and speak directly into the microphone in a clear voice. When presenting, please address any comments or questions to the chair of the meeting, and keep your presentation brief, 5 minutes only. Once you have completed your presentation, please ensure you summarize any requests or concerns. The chair will then ask council members if they have any questions. Remember, there will be no decisions made at this meeting on any requests or concerns you may have. Lastly, requests will be referred to staff for review, report, and recommendation to the council. And we would appreciate your consideration of your time allotment. Now I'll call for the first time anybody who wishes to come forward this evening to ask a question about the city's operation. If you'd like, please come forward. Make yourselves comfortable in the chair there in front of the microphone. And when you're ready to speak, press the grayish-green button so that people watching at home by television will be able to hear you. Is there anyone this evening, I'll call for a second time, who wishes to come forward to ask a question about the city's operation? Good evening.
Good
evening. Please pull the microphone towards you.
Hello?
Yes, you can adjust it up, certainly. Make sure you're comfortable there.
We're supposed to hear yourself into the speakers.
Yeah, pull it quite close to you. It enables the people at home to listen.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening. Please proceed.
My name is Sharon Jo Scott. This evening, sitting in this chair, I'm representing the Mental Health Advisory Council, and I'm accompanied by Lothar.
Lothar Shiza.
We've been working on a small grant that is to teach advocacy. My part of the grant is to teach advocacy, and the concern we're coming with today to council, we have already contacted council about, and that is the state of, well, not state, what happens to found bicycles in Prince Rupert. So initially, we were told that found bicycles, because of liability by City Hall, where the tires were slashed and the bicycles were cut up and they were given to recycling. So Lothar and I met Rory Mandrick, and then I did some research with Kitimat and Terrace. In Kitimat, their city gives the bicycles to a society called CUTE, and then the society turns around and sells those bicycles for $10 each, and people in the City of Kitimat follow that truck. In Terrace, they also give the bicycles to needy people. When we were in touch with Rory by email, we have found a nonprofit society in this town, which is the Off-Road Cycling Society, who would very much appreciate, rather than the bicycles going to recycling, to be made available to the public at large. We understand the procedure now is that when found, the RCMP store them in Wantage Road, and that's it. I think that's it.
Okay, so your request is that the city turn over any bikes which are within its control to the group who would then make them available to the public.
And that group is signed up for, we had our first farmers market last Saturday, and they will be at every farmers market this summer. At least they've paid for a whole season, and they will repair bicycles like they did last Saturday and make them available to the public. Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening. Just to let you know, they've established they have a place, like a roof, okay? It's the new fabric store, just across from like CBC.
Okay.
They're upstairs, okay? So they have a place to keep them. All right, and there's lots of ideas like what Randy and I were come up with is when we have the people come in off the boats, you know, they go to the what's the place down here across from CBC for the boat people.
Oh, you're talking about the seafarers.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, to get some bikes to them, and the people coming on shore can get some exercise coming through town.
Right.
And
Okay.
show up the rest of the people that you know, you can
Sure.
get on a bike.
Okay. We'll refer your request to city staff for a report. Hopefully we're able to do what other municipalities are doing.
The last report I had from Rory was that he had forwarded it to engineering. I also want to make the point that I'm going to try to fundraise with Derek Baker, who used to work here, to pay for the funding. This bicycle club is able to get helmets at cost. So we not only want to cover the bikes, we want to make sure people are safe on the bikes. And it's Bike to Work Week.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Have a good evening. Is there anyone else who wishes to come forward this evening? No, there is somebody, I believe. Sure.
I'm just here in another hat for a moment. I'd like to introduce Lisa Gerboff, who is our summer student for the Salmonberry Farmers Market.
Ms. Gerboff is familiar to us. Good evening.
Hello. So my name is Lisa Gerbov. I'm representing the Salmonberry Farmers Market, and last weekend was our first market, and it was pretty successful, even though we had a lot of other things going on around town. But this weekend we didn't have any performances, but in the following weekend we're hoping to have the Gitmuk-Mackay Nishka dancers come down and perform. And so I would like to make the request to use the power at the courthouse so we could possibly set up a PA system, and then that way we could properly introduce the dancers and they can also introduce the songs that they're doing. I've already contacted Rory Mandrick regarding the power, but he was out of town when I emailed him, and so he referred me to Stephanie Hidber, and she said to contact the Special Event Society, so I contacted them, and Joyce Sunduk told me to talk to Rory again. So I've kind of come full circle, and so I'm not exactly sure who I should be addressing regarding the power, but we would like to set up a PA system for the next weekend and possibly for any future
And the city has control of the power at the courthouse, do they?
I think so, because there's we have the
Okay, because that
Christmas
is
lights.
provincial government. Oh, I see. Right. Okay, that's a different power source than the building source.
Yeah,
Right.
we want it like out because we're set up on the lawn of the
Right.
courthouse.
Okay.
So there, to our
Well,
understanding, that there's
in
outlets there.
my opinion, for what it's worth, there's only one person you should talk to. and one person directly. Happens to be a light-colored haired gentleman who's sitting on my right, which is your left. And he's sitting right there, and his name's Mr. Long, and he's the city manager. It's the fella at the far end of the horseshoe there. So if you see Mr. Long, rather than get the runaround, I think he'll straighten it out. Thank you very much. It's a good idea.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Just last, I've been told, and we are getting Mexican food next weekend. We're working on Chinese food. We're having a group of immigrant people do their food safe. But if we have music and food, people will come.
Yes, please go ahead.
Since you're here, and obviously, I think people have obviously seen that you're there, but if there were some people that were interested in, say, putting up a table or doing that, how would they do that?
Well, we actually have a Salmonberry email, or else you can also contact us by phone. We have posters up around town. We also have a Facebook page and a website, so you can find us online at salmonberrytrading.com. And you can email us at salmonberrytrading@gmail.com, or on our website at Salmonberry Trading Co. Society.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck. Is there anyone else who wishes to come forward this evening and has a question about the city's operations? Yes, please come ahead. Good evening. Please put the mic as close to you as you dare, and the grayish-green button to your eye. There you go. Make sure you're comfortable.
Hi, my name's Christine Malacca. I'm not here representing any group. I'm just here as a citizen. And I'm here to talk about the trees in the city. I've lived here 26 years. 1 year I lived away and moved back. And in that time, I've steadily seen numerous trees in many areas of the city just poof, 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 disappear. We live in the rainiest city in Canada. That makes us the grayest, starkest, dreariest, mildewiest city in Canada. I think one of the only things we have going for us is the beauty of the area. And if you look from the whole entire downtown core, where we used to have trees, Mariners Park, we used to have them on the tree or the corner of where the casino is, and throughout the city, there just really aren't anymore. The only tree I can think of in this whole entire downtown core, I'm sorry, I'm nervous, I just sound nervous, is near the mall, and there was a couple beside it that got cut down. So, well, and then there's a couple beside the Ocean View, but that's on private property. And I would just like to raise the issue, and I guess the question is, because when I look at the, what do you call it, the city, what is that?
The official community plan and
that's the
quality
one.
of life document.
The quality of
yes.
life. Okay, so the attributes that were rated, received very high average ratings on the survey, I guess, that went out. One of them is protection of natural areas and landmarks, and I think we've seen a lot of passion in the city for our trees and natural areas where there was an incredible uproar over potentially cutting down the trees on the courthouse lawn and cutting down the natural area on Atlan Avenue. Like I said, I've seen many other trees cut down. When my kids were small and I used to walk through Moresby Park, I remember walking down there one day to find 3 big beautiful trees that just surrounded the pond and were just gone. They were cut down. They were hacked down to make very crude kind of chairs. The trees that lined Summit Avenue, that alongside or across from Roosevelt School, there was big, beautiful trees that lined that drive. Those were cut down. I mean, I could go on and on. And then there's the issue of trees on private property. So when there's a tree like the enormous cedar that was recently cut down on Borden Street, I can't even drive on that street anymore. I just think it just destroyed the entire beauty of what was a beautiful street. So I would like to pursue an idea that maybe we could develop something towards the goal of protection of natural areas and landmarks, something similar to what the district or whatever it's called of Saanich has, of a heritage tree, and that trees of certain species and trees of certain size, whether they're on public or private land, have protection. And I think we need that here, because even in my own back alley, again, for example, just this last year, we've had a neighbor cut down an enormous spruce, or beautiful spruce, and another neighbor cut down, I guess he felt that it was going to threaten his foundation, but it actually isn't that near his house, so I'm not sure why that tree was allowed to be cut down. I don't even think it was on his property. And then there were two beautiful giant cedars down at the end of our alley, which were cut down, and I think that was because it's a very small house, and I see they're building an addition. Maybe they could have moved to a bigger house and left the trees for the rest of the people that enjoy them. Anyways, that's my issue, and I don't really know what I'm asking here specifically or what I'm expecting. I just wanted to raise the issue and
Certainly.
to say
Well,
that
let's see
I want to pursue it.
Let's see if members of council have questions for you. Councillor Ashley and Councillor Guerin.
So thank you for coming forward. I mean, I agree that the trees are one of the things that make our city beautiful. There are a couple of things that I think might be difficult in what you're saying. Not saying it's not maybe worth pursuing, but I think there could be some difficulties. I think it would be pretty hard to enforce on private property somebody saying you can cut down a tree or not. Not saying, but I think that might be hard. And I just also want to get clarification. Do we not have trees along 2nd Avenue built into the sidewalk? I mean,
On 3rd Avenue we do, yes.
Third? Okay,
yes.
sorry. But I'm not saying, I'm not trying to disagree with what you're saying. I was just trying to make sure that I wasn't imagining things. So I think that there's some merit to what you're saying, and it's worth some talk, but to be honest and fair, probably wouldn't end up being on our priorities list. If it's something that you really felt like you wanted to pursue, I think maybe you want to talk to other people as well and come, like maybe if you came up with a committee and some ideas that might be feasible, then those things would make it easier for us to do. But in terms of trying to come, and I'm just speaking from my own perspective, but definitely brings up some worthwhile things to think about.
Thank you. Councillor Guerin, then Councillor Thorkelson.
Thank you, Ms. Malacca. Trees are beautiful, but they're also very dangerous. We have a lot of trees in town that have exceeded, they're almost 100 years old now. All the trees were cut down in 1906, 1907. There's a lot of trees sitting behind houses that are undermining people's foundations. There was also a tree the other day where a branch broke off, flew down the street, ripped someone's power pole. That's a huge, at one time probably beautiful tree. It's partially destroyed now, but you know, they are beautiful, but they're dangerous when they fall on your house or fall on your car or take out your power line. So I think there's a place for trees, and there's a place for large trees, and there's a place not for large trees, because they can, at some point in their life, they become a danger. So, you know, it's not a cut and dried, you know, don't cut down that tree because I really like it, but it might have other issues that are causing other problems for other people. So I think that's kind of a fine line if you get together with other people and maybe come forward that that's something that you need to consider. So
I do understand that. I just feel that too many trees are cut down for maybe not the right reason, and that we need to look at it, and that things can be done, such as bylaws and things. The protected tree in the Saanich plan, they have protected every Gary oak, arbutus, Pacific dogwood, Pacific yew tree, Douglas fir tree, western red cedar having a diameter greater than 60 centimeters, and any tree having a diameter greater than 80 centimeters.
Councillor Thorkelson.
Thank you very much, Ms. Malacca. It's an interesting conversation piece, and I think that it's something that many communities are looking at. There's Terraces right now. Right now is doing an inventory of heritage trees. At one time, I think we had an inventory, or we started an inventory of heritage trees, and there is actually a definition of what a heritage tree is. I think that, you know, I agree with Councillor Ashley. I doubt it's going to be on City Council's priority agenda for work for us to spend staff time on. But I think that, if you look at there is a heritage society that looked at the courthouse, and they might be interested in doing something talking about heritage trees. There's once in a while there's grants that we could come up with and seeing. And part of the heritage tree is finding out whether the heritage tree is actually healthy or not, and is able to withstand windstorms. The other issue is not whether just the trees are heritage trees, but it's also the issue that Councillor Garon raised, is that trees are falling down. So if you look now at the riparian zone all through town, whether it's along Hayes Creek or Oldfield Creek, in up by the golf course, is that many of the alders are growing old and are falling down every time we have a big windstorm. Another couple of trees go. And I really think it's worthwhile trying to get some interest in replanting those. Certainly we can get trees from forestry, provides free trees. Boy Scouts and Girl Guides used to plant those trees in backyards, and our trees are very large from being planted by Boy Scouts in our backyard. But I think that that there are lots of things that we could do, and and the Heritage Tree Program is something. If you had found some people that would be interested, I think it would be an excellent project for people to get engaged in the city. But also not just heritage trees, because I think that protecting our riparian zone and replacing the trees that are blowing down is also very important. And I think that there can be funding that enthusiastic people can perhaps talk to city staff about and do that kind of thing.
Councillor Kenny.
Sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can agree with you, and thank you for your presentation, because the highway looks terrible the way they're cutting the trees down there. It's just a disgrace as far as I'm concerned. But the lady you should contact is Rhoda Witherly from the Heritage Committee. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I'll call again. Is there anybody who wishes to come forward and ask a question about the city's operations? If you'd like to come forward, please do. Good evening. Thank you for coming. I'll just remind you of the 5-minute permitted time limit. Council has been getting after me for not being more diligent about it, so don't get me in hot water here. Please go ahead.
He said go. I've had a chance in the past to look back at when I first came to council here and asked a request in the state I was in. Just check it out sometime. Just the first time I was here, and well, the request at the time was this was before the last provincial election, to give me a chance to communicate to a lady that is now the premier of the province, elected. She was repeatedly saying she wants to listen. Well, I'm sitting here and she still hasn't heard me, because I haven't had a chance to. But the point I want to make here, I'm deeply disappointed. The fact I came to this council and I asked to use the equipment here to do that communication, and the response I got was as if you guys bought the equipment. I have to say this, the taxpayer paid for it. So that equipment is at the service of the people of the community. And if there's important things that need to be communicated, not just in a letter by a council, but a direct message to somebody who is in control, I think an opportunity should be made It's so that it's part of our rights of free speech to be heard and to be recognized. And in the Buddhist sense, to create change. Einstein's theory of insanity, or theory of insanity, is we keep doing things the same over and over and over again, yet somehow we expect a different result. Well, it's still running?
Certainly.
Well, I got time? How much?
You got a minute left.
Oh, wow. Oh, boy.
Perhaps I could interject and say that if you'd like to make that request again,
Yeah.
as a result of what you said, the
Yeah.
council will consider your request again.
Yeah.
And
But it's not just for me. See, the thing, the mindset is, well, if we do it for you, we'll have to do it for everybody. Well, that's the point. Give opportunity. Yeah. Same with First Nations. Give opportunity and then let them speak. And you learn something.
Councillor Ashley.
You learn respect.
Thank you. Councillor Ashley.
Mr. Shiza, I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong. Shiza, okay, thank you. I remember when you came and asked us, and while I understand your frustration, or I think I understand your frustration, and I can, okay, and I understand that you want to communicate with the Premier, and you have things that you want to say, and you said some very worthwhile things to us in terms of, bringing forward some issues about social concerns. The thing about that I see, and I think other people on council, the reason that the request was denied was exactly that. There could, if we allow it for one, then it's pretty much has to be allowed for everybody. And I know that you could say, well, we should be doing that. The way I look at it, though, is that there are other, if I felt that the only way you could be heard and communicate to the Premier in some sort of video form or something like that was by using our equipment, if I felt that was the only way you could do it, I would probably 100% support that. But it's not the only way. I would certainly, I can tell you this, I would certainly be willing to help you with, putting, no, just one second. I would certainly be willing to help, put you in communication with people that could help you, perhaps with videotaping you, with maybe putting it on YouTube, with doing those kinds of things, with even sending a video message to the Premier herself, because there is an email address. But in terms of using...
I'm sorry, but that's too complicated for me. This is easy. I sit here, the guy pushes the button, and we start.
I understand that, but that means staff time.
Okay, please let the councillor finish. Councillor Ashley?
I understand that it looks like it's simple, and I don't want to take up a lot of time here, okay? But the fact is that while it may seem that way, in order to process what you're talking about, it's not just a matter of us setting up the thing and you saying your piece and it's done. That means hours of staff time and a bunch of other things that have to happen. And so while I certainly appreciate, I would be willing to help you on a personal level, but I wouldn't want to put staff to have to put those hours in.
Your last comments.
What would happen if I paid the staff to do it? Could that be arranged?
I'm not sure.
As a consideration, it's throwing this thing up at cost. What you fail to realize, if I could have got that message out that I needed to get out before the election, we might have a different government. Because the things I have to say, anybody who listens will start to say, well, this man has logic in his mind, and his brain is logic functional. He sees things that other people don't see, and it's so frustrating to have your mind full of stuff and not get it out. It's running around in there like a bunch of marble or those balls that bounce like crazy, But I ask reconsider.
Okay.
Well, what I'm looking at is like Facebook. I hate Facebook. Okay, I got on there once and I got emails full of stuff. I don't want it, you know. And you got friends and you got not unfriends and no. I went around and before I came here to see if I could do it somewhere else, other than like this Facebook thing, you know. But if you do something like that, you lose quality. All right. I want to do it right. There's a guy on Channel 46, Mike Holmes, and his philosophy is do it right.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We'll certainly reconsider. Is there anybody else this evening who wishes to come forward and ask a question about the city's operations? If not, I'll ask Council to adjourn this committee of the whole meeting. Moved by Councillor Ashley, seconded by Councillor Kinney. Any discussion? Question has been called. Those in favor? Thank you. We'll go back to the regular meeting of Council agenda. I'll ask Council to consider the recommendation for adoption of the agenda, and it is that the agenda for the regular Council meeting of May 26, 2014 be adopted as circulated with the addition of the revised resolution item number 6C, and there's a recommendation there. Would somebody like to move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Kinney, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Carlick-Pearson, yes? Okay. Any discussion? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. The agenda is adopted. For Council's consideration, there's 3 sets of minutes this evening. The first set are the minutes of the special Council meeting of May 12, 2014. The recommendation is that they be adopted. Moved by Councillor Carlick-Pearson, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Are there any errors or omissions? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. Those minutes are adopted. The second set of minutes are the minutes of the public hearing of May 12, 2014. The recommendation is that they be adopted. Moved by Councillor Ashley, seconded by Councillor Kinney. Are there any errors or omissions? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. Those minutes are adopted. And the third set are the minutes of the regular Council meeting of May 12, 2014. Recommendation is to adopt. Moved by Councillor Carlick-Pearson, seconded by Councillor Ashley. Are there any errors or omissions? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. Those minutes are also adopted. Next, under petitions and delegations, there's a presentation from Mr. Graham Genge, who is the Community Coordinator for Spectra Energy, and this is regarding the project update that Spectra Energy is proposing. Good evening.
Just get settled. Thank you, Your Worship, Council, staff. Appreciate you having me here once again. The reason why I'm here tonight is to give a little bit of a project update on where Spectra Energy and our West Coast Connector gas transmission project is, and be able to listen and hear from you as well. So for those of you who are unaware of who I am, I work with Spectra as a community coordinator. I've lived in Terrace for 5 years, and I chose not to bike to work today, but I did sign up, so I appreciate what the other people here had to say. So I just wanted to listen, we're here to listen and to learn and to share where we are in our project. There's also certainly an opportunity to address questions and concerns. Just step back a little bit. For those of you who are unaware of who Spectra Energy is, we've been in the province for almost 57 years. We have very deep roots in the province, and currently we serve about 60% of the natural gas in the province, from gathering, processing, and transmission lines that span the length of the province and cross over at the Peace Arch into the United States as well. So one of the things that's really important to us, and we've continued to do so, is have to safe, reliable systems and to be very focused with continuing our ongoing relationships in the communities and with the First Nations that we work with. So for this project, we've put in about 2 years of stakeholder input and collected and been able to reflect and work on the current routing that we have for our approximately 850 kilometer pipeline. The pipeline is for up to 48 inches, which would serve the BG group project, which is on Ridley Island. And currently, in our extensive field work, which we've surpassed more than 3,000 plus Aboriginal days of employment, and had many different local contractors and companies working with us through this process. What we've been working towards in here, the main goal was departing from our pre-application stage and entering into our application. So we just recently filed our application with the BC Environmental Assessment Office, and now have entered into the 180-day review period and the 45-day public comment period, which extends into June. So there are many different ways for the public to understand and learn more about our project, not only watching this online with, as well as upcoming open houses. We have an open house June 3rd here in Prince Rupert. We have some in Terrace. Across the route all the way into northeastern BC. There are also copies of the application at different locations throughout including our office in Terrace as well as online. So that's some of the really key stages we're at right now to include more engagement and consultation moving forward. With this project, we expect to have a final investment decision into 2016 and continuing on with construction into 2017 and hopefully into about 3 years of construction across the length of the project. So I sort of already alluded to this, the position we are in right now, and we have filed again. One of the other key pieces on here is the permitting to the project if we were successful in receiving an environmental certificate, and that's with the BC Oil and Gas Commission. So that process is slowly starting with our project as well, and will continue forward. If we've put a map in here just to show where it starts in northeastern BC, up in the Cypress area. This map here is a little bit hard to see, but the document I provided you has a little bit clearer view of that. One of the key factors here in our route selection is we've entered into just north of Terrace at the Cranberry Connector, close to Nouillange, and we have two options. One's the Kitsault option, which we are still carrying through our environmental assessment. So that goes into Kitsault, and from there it's about 170 kilometers of marine pipeline. We have another option that goes into the Nass Valley and over to Nesoga Gulf, which is just across the water from the village of Kincolith. And from there, that option enters the water and is a marine lay pipeline as well, all the way into Ridley. I'll just make a note. The pipe size in the marine option is a 42-inch pipe that we're carrying right now, so it's a little bit smaller and a higher pressure. As we just determine the best alternatives for our route, we've engaged in a lot of different aspects and a lot of different companies and mines looking to this project. So we do know that natural gas is it is a safe and proven method to transport in the marine environment. And as you can see there, there's a picture of the Stena Apache, which is the boat that helped lay the pipeline from the mainland over to Vancouver Island, which continues to serve natural gas to Vancouver Island, which Spectra Energy historically as West Coast Energy had a part in, and now it's currently owned by FortisBC and continues to serve those markets. So how do we determine the methodology in determining where we can place a marine pipeline in this environment out here on the West Coast? So we've undertaken many different things, from geophysical, which is we've had some opportunities to do some VibraCore, which is small core sampling. That's geotechnical. And the geophysical, we've done a lot of different bathymetry, side scan, and as well as underwater video of the entire length of the line. Through that, we've determined many different route alternatives and options, and been able to document all of that along the way. In terms of environmental studies, Terra Environmental, which is now a CH2M Hill company, has completed the environmental studies and still has more to do through this process, some more supplemental work. But here's a list of some of the projects and some of the work that was done throughout the entire line, just to highlight birds, fish, wildlife, vegetation, as well as working with local First Nations along the entire line to work through traditional ecological knowledge and traditional land use studies to incorporate each First Nation's important and valued input. How do we move the gas along the line? Just as an update there. So for our project, we've currently listed up to 5 compressor sites, 1 at the beginning, 1 at the entrance to the water, and dependent on the project size and scope, we have up to 5 for the entire length. I just would like to also add that our project, and from day one, we've had the vision and the forward thinking of incorporating up to 2 pipelines in our right-of-way to encourage a common corridor for natural gas movement across the province. And again, we currently are holding 1 project with BG Group. So how do you get involved in our project? And that's one of the major questions that people keep asking. As locals and key stakeholders in the project area, there's many different ways. But the one key thing that we're doing is we did launch some regional business and employment information sessions. Those were held Prince George Smithers Terrace last fall, and the second round of them are still coming. Obviously, Prince Rupert is high on the list for that, incorporating a lot of the different marine aspects of the project. But you can go to our website, energyforbc.ca, /work with us, and there's an opportunity for companies to become a registered vendor on our database. And from there, we'll move forward into, as the project moves forward, we'll provide more information. Our commitment to the communities is paramount. As Spectra Energy, we do have deep roots again in the province, and featured here are 2 of my direct colleagues doing a volunteer program, which is the Helping Hands in Action. We are also very proud supporters of the United Way and continue to do so, and as well as other educational institutions, such as last year we provided our $1 millionth to UNBC. So we will continue to do so, and encourage all of you council members to reach out to myself, and if other community groups and members have ideas of opportunities that Spectra can get involved in, we're very happy to do so. The most recent was just this weekend. We supported the Salmon Festival here in Prince Rupert. So if you have more questions or comments, our project website again is energyforbc.ca. There's certainly an easy way to connect with us, a 1-800 number there. But being local, there's 2 of us in our terrace office. We're more than happy to answer questions and sit down with community members to walk them through the project. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll see if there's any questions from members of council. Councillor Ashley?
Thank you for your presentation. I'm going to jump in on the thing you just said about possible opportunities for getting money for different organizations and stuff. So I guess what I'm wondering is, what types of things would Spectra potentially, give money to or support? And then secondly, if there was a local organization that wanted to contact you about that, how would they go about that?
So typically, great question, thank you. So there's many different areas, but typically we're looking for things that involve community members and will be assist community members in ongoing support for initiatives. I mean, just listening to the woman speak about the bike initiative, I mean, that's a great one. We typically don't, sports teams, that sort of request, it's a little bit more challenging. We do want to find really real value. Not to say that there isn't value in sports, being an avid person myself who enjoys the outdoors and sports, but it's sort of a case by case. Those requests can come directly to myself. However, we have a new grant program as well, which is the West Coast Connector grants. Those are up to $5,000, and what I'll do is I'll provide the staff and Jack Salem with some of the information on how to reach out to those grants. I may have some information in my truck as well. I can drop off tomorrow morning.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Ashley.
And then just further to that, I'm just thinking, I was talking about like sort of local community organizations, but now I'm going to talk more from a city perspective. Is there any potential, like where your company would, if there were things that benefited the community, let's say in terms of equipment or other things that we needed as a city, are there opportunities there for getting money from Spectra at all? I'm trying. An example might be something that's coming up on our agenda a little bit about like the new Zamboni that's being bought by our minor ice hockey or minor hockey. But I'm just thinking in terms of those things, are there opportunities for council to take advantage in that way, or?
So I think there's a couple things of note is remembering where the stage we are in our project. So developing that grant program, I think, is very applicable, as well as our continued support through institutions and others. But certainly, if the fit is right, and our committee would certainly take a look at any project that's brought forth to us. But I could see if we were successful in having a project, there's many different opportunities for the community.
Councillor Thorkelson.
I have a couple of questions. One is I was interested to hear, and maybe I was wondering if you could expand on it, talking about a corridor. One of the grave concerns that we have, of course, is that if everybody wants to bring LNG to the Prince Rupert area, we could have multi-corridors, which means multi-crossings of every single salmon-bearing river between, north of the Skeena main stem. So I was wondering, you're talking about one corridor, and have you been talking with the other pipelines to see if you can share a corridor?
Thank you very much for the question. So again, in our project description, carrying the opportunity to go through the environmental process, permitting process for up to 2 pipelines is our vision. We currently are looking and speaking to many different proponents as a business would. We have yet to determine any other partner, except we are currently holding the BG Group as our one pipeline. That being said, there's certainly more opportunity to do so, and we're in early stages of a project, and we will continue to do so. And if there is any more updates that I can provide, I certainly will do so, but I don't think I have any more to add to that for now.
Further questions? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you. Oh.
Yes?
The website is energyforbc.ca for the community.
That's correct. I haven't looked to see if they've uploaded it, but I will make sure I provide that with you. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. We'll move on to reports and recommendations. The first is a report from the corporate administrator regarding an encroachment agreement requested for a residence at 972 10th Avenue East. Comes with a recommendation that the city enters into an encroachment agreement with the owner of the said property. Mr. Mandrick, would you like to outline your report for people watching at home by television?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a pretty standard encroachment agreement for 972 10th Avenue East. The owner of the property has requested that the city go into an encroachment agreement for the front porch and the steps that encroach upon the road allowance on 10th Avenue East. This has gone through the engineering department. There's no additional costs or impacts to us, and the conclusion and recommendation from the engineering department was entering into the encroachment agreement would allow the owner to legitimize the encroachment and relieve their mortgage and insurance concerns. So the recommendation is to allow for this encroachment.
Thank you. I'll ask Council's consideration of the recommendation. Councillor Ashley.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Ashley, seconded by Councillor Kinney. Is there any discussion? Question has been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That motion is adopted. Next is a report from the Recreation Services Consultant. It's regarding the purchase of a new Zamboni ice resurfacer by the Prince Rupert Minor Hockey Association for use by the Recreation Department. The recommendation is that the city accept the Prince Rupert Minor Hockey Association's generous contribution to purchase a new Zamboni ice resurfacer valued at $120,000 and make it available on a perpetual basis for use by the Recreation Department. Mr. Long, if you would outline the report, if there's anything more there for people at home. It's pretty well stated in the recommendation. But
Yep. Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I think it's fairly straightforward in terms of the offer of the Minor Hockey Association to purchase the Zamboni.
Yes.
Is this, it says a lease fee of $10 per year?
Yes. That's so that there's some value to the document.
Okay.
I'll ask Council's consideration of the recommendation. Councillor Thorkelson.
Well, I was there a motion to?
Yeah.
We haven't yet. Then I'm
No.
going to move the recommendation, and with thanks to minor hockey. I
Thanks.
just can't believe what a great hockey association that is.
Yeah, that was going to be my second recommendation to Council, that a letter of thanks be sent. And I was going to specify, if Council wanted to consider, that we all sign it. But so Councillor Thorkelson's moved a recommendation. It's seconded by Councillor Carlick-Pearson. Is there any discussion? Questions? Yes, please go ahead.
I was on council when we purchased that second, not the Zamboni that appears to continue to be working. That's 25 years old, but the 8-year-old other one. Is there any? Why is that 8-year-old one not working? I guess is my question, and. You know, why, you know, was it under warranty? Is it just that we end up with a lemon? I mean, that's really a disgrace.
In talking to the recreation coordinator, it's a machine that requires constant servicing, constant adjustment, and the closest service center, I believe, is Vancouver. Its application has never been really good for the recreation department here. Councillor Ashley.
Just further to that, also at the Rec Commission meeting, we were given the information that the type of engine that it is very hard to service, whereas this new one that they are purchasing for us, if we make this motion, is, I think, a Ford or some sort of engine like that, and is easily fixable in Prince Rupert. And so those are some things that make it a lot easier and better for the use.
Councillor Garan and then Councillor Cunningham.
Could we have staff give us a report on that? So
On the old machine? Yeah. Certainly. Councillor Cunningham.
Is the new Zamboni a propane-powered one, or is it an electric-powered one?
I believe it's electric. I'm not quite sure, though. Mrs. Bombin?
No, I don't believe it's electric. I believe it's a gas.
It is
powered.
propane?
Yep.
Okay, it's propane. Yes, Councillor Carlick-Pearson.
Are we able to salvage it in any way, or are we keeping it as backup?
No, the old machine would be, the city would divest itself of it. It would keep the other Zamboni that it has. So we would end up with two Zambonis, an old one for backup and this new one.
Thank you.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Garon.
So why are we keeping it if it needs constant repair? And
We're not keeping the one that needs constant repair. We're keeping
the old Zamboni?
The old Zamboni. And we're getting the one that's 25 years old. We're getting...
Yeah, that's the Zamboni. The other one's the Ice Bear. And we're
that's
getting a new
right. That
Zamboni.
we're divesting ourselves of. That's approximately 8 years old.
Thank you.
Call for the question. Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That motion passes. And once again, the thanks of the council to the Prince Rupert Minor Hockey Association. Yes.
You were mentioning wanting a letter sent. Did we want a motion on that?
Councillor Thorkelson actually rolled it into her motion that it be approved with thanks to the Prince Rupert Minor Hockey Association. Next is a report from the Chief Financial Officer. This concerns the annual report. Mrs. Bonbon, would you like to outline your annual report, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. Every year, the city is required by the Community Charter to prepare an annual report. The city must also set a date, time, and place for an annual public meeting for consideration of the report in accordance with the provisions of the Act. And the meeting allows the public to make submissions and ask questions about the report. The date of the annual meeting must be at least 14 days after the annual report is available for public inspection. The annual report will be put on the city's website, and printed copies will be made available for public inspection on Tuesday, May 27th, provided this recommendation is passed. The regular council meeting scheduled for June 23rd, 2014 will enable ample time for the public to review the report.
Thank you. My thanks. It is a good report. It outlines the performance of the city, the strategic plan, how the city has proceeded in the last year to work on the various topics that have been identified. And interestingly enough, it points out in there the number of streetlights that have been changed to LED last year. So it's got a variety of information. It's a good overview of how the city operated last year. I'll ask Councillor Ashley.
I just wanted to also say it's for those people in the city that are wondering what we do and what staff is doing. If you go through there, it's a pretty concise guide of the kinds of things that people have been working on, what's been completed, what's still going on, and what we're planning. So I think that it's a very good report, worth a look over for sure.
I'll ask Council's consideration of the recommendation. And the recommendation is that Council by resolution approve the circulation of the 2013 annual report and set the date of June 23rd, 2014 for a public meeting on the annual report. And certainly at that public meeting, members of the community are welcome to come in and ask questions about the report. Moved by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Ashley. Is there any discussion? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That motion is adopted. Next is a report from the Deputy Chief Elections Officer. And it's a failure to file election campaign financial disclosure statements. And the recommendation is that the Council receive and file this report at an open meeting. And in fact, it's a requirement that we do this. And it's noted that the person in the report, and really this is done because we have to, the person in the report has recently passed away. And so with the trouble that they were having with their health and trying to deal with cancer, I'm sure filing their papers from the last municipal election was not a priority. So we're not trying to identify or pinpoint anything in particular. We're required by regulation to do this. Councillor Ashley.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Garon. Is there any further discussion? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That motion's adopted. Next is the report from the City Manager. It concerns the appointment of Elections Officer, and this is the additional item that I talked about during the adoption of the agenda. And the recommendation, which has been inserted, is that Tanya Ostrom, Assistant Operations Manager, be appointed the Chief Elections Officer, and that Rory Mandrick, Corporate Administrator, be appointed as the Deputy Elections Officer for the 2014 General Municipal Election. I'll ask Council's consideration of that. Councillor Kinney, so moved. Seconded by Councillor Carlick-Pearson. Councillor Ashley.
So just clarifying, what's in our thing here is wrong. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay,
This
good
was
enough.
the
Yeah,
addition
no,
to the
that's,
agenda.
I just want to make sure that I'm voting on the right thing. It's all good.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Any discussion? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That's adopted. Next, we'll move on to correspondence for action. There's a proclamation request from the SPARC BC, and this concerns Access Awareness Day. Recommendation is that Council declare June 7th, 2014 Access Awareness Day in the City of Prince Rupert. Mr. Long, would you like to outline the reason why the request has been made for the proclamation, please?
Certainly, Your Worship. Spark BC has a long-standing request or encourages the society to be aware of access issues, and are asking us to do the same for June the 7th.
Thank you. Councillor Carlick-Pearson.
I'll make the recommendation
Or the motion.
of the motion.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Is there any discussion? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. Next is a letter from a local art teacher at the Charles Hayes Secondary School, and it's concerning a stencil project. And the recommendation is that Council review the request and provide direction to the staff. And when I read this over, and I'd like Council's opinion on this, I thought it might be a good topic to refer to the Recreation Advisory Commission for comment. But I'd ask a member of staff, Mr. Long, if you would please, to outline this request. Please explain to the public what the stencil project would be about.
Certainly, Your Worship. Mr. How do you say that? Demanuel has an art class who basically been doing stencils, and he's suggesting that they give some stenciling an opportunity at the skateboard park. And I think this is an issue where on one side seems like a good idea to get them to stencil in the right place, and maybe understand the difference between stenciling and vandalism. But on the other hand, certainly whether or not we're encouraging the use of stenciling on public property. So really, it's a call for council or the rec commission to kind of wrestle which one of those values is more appropriate for the community.
Thank you. So I'll ask council's consideration. Would they like to deal with this, or would they like to refer it to the Recreation Advisory Commission? Councillor Thorkelson.
I hate to, unless, how often is that Rec Advisory Committee going to?
Once a month, every month.
And when would the next meeting be?
The fourth Wednesday of the month, so this coming Wednesday.
Oh, well then I'm going to move that it go there. I think it rightly is theirs, but I didn't want to delay it, so that's why my questions. Sure. And in moving it, if there's a seconder, I would.
Seconded by Councillor Kinney. Please go ahead.
I'd like to say that one of the things I'm very proud of in our community is the amount of public artwork that we have, and I want to say there's been very, very little vandalism of public artwork in our community, and I think that people have been appreciative. There is public artwork already at the skateboard park. There's designs created that I would say are certainly artwork as opposed to graffiti at the skateboard park, and there's very little graffiti on top of the designs that were there, and I think that would be nice to continue to have youth participate in community art. Apparently it beats paying $500,000 for a hula hoop on the way to the Calgary airport. I think this is a far better saying Fargbuck. But I was wondering if anybody can explain to me how this works. You have a picture of it. I don't know if anybody...
Yeah, those are the stencils.
Yeah, and so do you just rub them on and they come off as a stencil, or how does anybody know how it works?
I believe it's paint. Spray bomb.
I think it looks really cool. Anyway, I'm hoping that the Art Commission will, the Recreation Commission would permit that.
Thank you. Councillor Ashley.
I'm definitely in favor of the motion. I just have a question because of the way that the Rec Commission works. Usually something comes there, and then if it gets approved, it would come back to council. So I'm just wondering, with this motion, are we saying we're going to give that decision to the Rec Committee? Because I think it would make it easier.
Well, you're right. The Rec Committee would recommend to council. So at the next council meeting, we'd have an answer as to whether they thought it was suitable or not.
Well, I guess the only reason I'm saying this is because it is approaching like the end of the school year.
Okay.
And I think there's like an immediacy to this. So if we're saying that the most appropriate body to look at this is the Rec Commission and council is okay with that, I almost think you could say that Wednesday, whatever decision of the Rec Committee could just go forward. So that's what I'm asking.
If that's okay with the council? Okay. All right. So it's Mr. Mandrick, if you would, it's referred to the Recreation Advisory Committee for their absolute denial or say-so. Straight to the proponent. That's okay with the mover and seconder? Okay, thank you. Councillor Garon.
Thanks. The question that I have is, I know a few years back, Monica Lamierski had got funding from the Arts Foundation, the Arts Group, whatever it's called, to do all the artwork that is currently at the skateboard park. So I'd be concerned about any of those being covered up. Like, I think some of them are probably worthy of keeping, but I haven't been to the skateboard park lately, but I think some people might take offense to having some of their artwork covered up. So
yeah, there is some nice pieces down there.
I would kind of like that investigated first before anything's done.
How does the rest of the council feel? Councillor Ashley.
Well, I think that since Councillor Garon has brought it up, that could be brought up at the Rec Commission, and it could be investigated, and perhaps it could be dealt with by saying that you're not going to cover over anything that's there. It has to be on open spaces or something along those lines.
You'll be at the Rec Commission on Wednesday night?
Unfortunately, I am not able to be there. I'm going to be out of town. I'll be on the plane at that time.
Okay. Councillor Carlick-Pearson.
Your Worship, it says our meeting's on April 30th. But we're scheduled for Wednesday. May.
May 30th.
It says May 30th, which is Friday, but it's when the meeting says, yeah.
Okay, well I'm just a.
Well, the Rec Commission
did
make a motion that the meetings would be held the fourth Wednesday of each month, so
yeah.
it would be the 28th. Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That motion's adopted. Next, we'll move on to resolutions from the closed council meeting. Mr. Mandrick, as the corporate administrator, would you please release the motions approved by council?
Yes, Your Worship. Would you like me to read them out?
Yes, please.
Moved by Councillor Kinney and seconded by Councillor Ashley that Council receive this report for information purposes in regards to District Lot 444 and release the information to the public outlining the proponent's proposal. This was carried. Moved also by Councillor Thorkelson, seconded by yourself, the Mayor, that the City instruct the Legacy Corporation, following payment by the LNG proponent into the Legacy Corp, that the Legacy Corp hire on behalf of the City and as requested by the City an environmental engineer to be commissioned by Legacy Corp regarding all air and watershed concerns surrounding District Lot 444 and any proposed uses by the proponent. This was carried. Moved by Councillor Thorkelson, seconded by Councillor Kinney, that the City release to the public the resolution of Council regarding the hiring of an environmental engineer with regards to the use as proposed by the proponent, and this was carried.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to reports. Questions? Pardon me? Please go ahead.
I'm just wondering, and if it's not the appropriate time, it's not the appropriate time. But I'm just wondering, with some of these, the resolutions that we've just released, there could be some questions, and I'm wondering if we could just get a summary of the, especially the first one in terms of the release in terms of lot 444?
Sure. Mr. Long, if you would, please.
Certainly, Your Worship. Basically, this is a report to determine or to advise the community that the province of British Columbia recently included 444 within our boundaries. And as part of our overall economic development strategy and subsequent zoning for its ultimate use, the City of Prince Rupert has done a number of things with respect to that property. One is that they will transfer it to a wholly owned city subsidiary or city's fully owned company and proceed to zone the property for purchases for purposes for the purpose of use of the land. The community charter requires that all proceeds from the sale of land go back into our land fund, and that's one of the reasons why the city has proposed an independent, wholly owned corporation. So that corporation will hold the property, and subsequently, the city is presenting the possibility of using the land with a proponent, Imperial Oil Resources Limited and ExxonMobil Canada, under an investigative option to determine the suitability for their intended purposes. Part of this process will be the zoning of the parcel, a public process that will determine whether or not the proponent can proceed or can progress investigations of the potential liquefied natural gas export facility subject to government and regulatory approvals. At the time of the zoning, the public will be advised of the purposes the proponent wants to use the land for and the nature of the proponent's business. At this time, those dealings in land are in camera. Any payments made to the city's wholly owned company for this investigative option are similar to those made to the province for similar options for Grassy Point parcels. And the city continues to pursue alternative methods to garner city revenues, given the present difficulty in raising tax revenues due to the provincial tax caps on existing industrial tax assessment on Ridley Island and the container port. And the city's economic development strategy is to find alternative revenue sources and new tax revenues to offset the ongoing increase of the operational costs for the city. And this has been released so the public is aware that what the city is doing. Subsequently, the city will advertise shortly in the newspaper indicating that they'll be moving this parcel DL444 into the ownership of Prince Rupert Legacy Inc., which is the wholly owned city corporation, a corporation that is controlled fully by the council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Long. Yes.
I just wanted to say that lots of people don't know where DL 444 is, and I was wondering, if maybe you could explain where that lot is, and so what we're talking about permitting Imperial Oil and ExxonMobil to investigate for purposes of LNG.
Certainly. Specifically, District Lot 444 is past Seal Cove, heading up Prince Rupert Harbor, and is the area across from Seal Cove up to a point called Osborne Island. And the area that is under consideration by the proponent is on the western side, so adjacent the harbor and the harbor foreshore in that area. It does not include the eastern side of Lot 444, which contains partially the city's watershed.
And the other thing I wanted to say is that when we've been looking at this from council's point of view, is that we have not been discussing. This is LNG proposals that we're looking at. We're not looking at, even though people think of Imperial Oil and ExxonMobil as oil companies. We're looking at this. We're discussing this over the idea of an LNG facility, not an oil facility.
The only discussions that have been held are with regards to a liquefied natural gas export terminal.
And I guess the last thing that I wanted to point out was the resolution that we talked about is that in the interests of the city of Prince Rupert, that if this proposal moves forward, that we would be taking some of the money that we would perhaps receive from these companies in order to hire an environmental officer to do work for the city to make sure that our watershed, as a motion said, that our watershed and air sheds would be looked after, and we wouldn't be creating problems for ourselves in the future.
That's correct. Nobody wants to compromise what we have here.
Thank you, Your Worship.
You're welcome. We'll move on to reports, questions, and inquiries from members of council. Councillor Kinney, Councillor Garon, Councillor Ashley, and then Councillor Cunningham. And then Councillor Thorkelson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had a phone call from Captain Gary Shields and his wife Nancy, and they're having their big conference in Prince Rupert in June for 4 days at our Civic Center complex. And they would like to know if there's any chance that they could have a little bit or whatever we can discount for the 4 days.
Okay, that would be referred to the Recreation Director, our consultant there. And there is a procedure to deal with it there. Mr. Long, have you got anything to add to that?
No, Your Worship, we can do that, and I gather that's something that probably will be should be discussed with respect to policy or otherwise with the new Recreation Commission.
Next, Councillor Cunningham, pardon me. Or pardon me, Garon, sorry. You're actually second to last. Councillor Thorkelson is last.
I've had several comments lately from quite a few members of the community about their concerns of the tree trimming that's been done along the highway, both as it's not aesthetically pleasing, and also I've had a few people point out that it's possibly dangerous. There's lots of pokey things sticking up, dangerous to wildlife as well as anybody that might happen to stumble or fall off the side of the highway. It looks atrocious, and I think it needs to be dealt with. It just looks really ugly when you come into town that some of these trees have been chewed up and spit out, and I just don't understand why it's been done the way it's been done.
Okay. I can't speak to the aesthetics, but I can speak to the reason it is done. It is done in conjunction with the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure and the Insurance Corporation of British Columbia. In a lot of cases, it's not only to push the growth back, because sometimes in certain areas the wildlife will come out and feed on the edge, but it's also in the wintertime to try and get more sunlight onto the roads and reduce some of the hazardous road conditions. Sun gets on the road earlier in the day.
I understand that, but it's still it just looks terrible.
Okay, what would you like to have done?
I would like it cleaned up, so I would like to write a letter to the
letter?
Highways Department asking them to find a better way of doing it, because it just looks, it's disgusting. It's ugly.
Okay, so there's been a motion moved by Councillor Garon, seconded by Councillor Ashley, that a letter be written to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure requesting that when they do slashing and tree cutting along the edge of the road, that it not be done so that it looks unsightly. Is that okay? Okay. Councillor Ashley?
Just a quick comment towards that is I understand the reasons why they do it as well, but I've never seen it done this way before. It's always been done in a much more attractive manner before, and I don't know why it's been done this way.
Right.
There may be reasons, but it just seems to not fit what's happened in previous years.
Quite possibly it's something to do with efficiency. Is there any further discussion? Question's been called. Those in favor? Okay, that motion's adopted. Thank you. Next is Councillor Ashley.
So I have two things. The first one is just a quick one. I was putting all my things into the calendar for all our upcoming meetings, etc. And I noticed a conflict if we go with our fourth Wednesday of a month for the Rec Commission. We also have we had a change in an email from staff that we'd be having a workshop regarding UBCM strategy on June 25th, and that's the same night as the Rec Commission meeting. So I'm not sure that that's a problem, but it could end up being a lot of meeting time for somebody. Is it not the same night? So I'll defer to staff if it's
Mr.
not the
Mandrick?
same.
Your Worship, that meeting, there was a meeting request that was sent out to actually move from the 25th until the 4th of June. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't see that, so perfect.
The
Okay.
25th to the 4th of June.
And was that sent out fairly recently? Okay, I'll just look through my emails and I'll get that. My second question is, I know it's reaching near the deadline. I'm just wondering where we're at with our statement of defense regarding Watson Island.
Mr. Long.
Certainly, Worship. We anticipate that tomorrow or the next day we'll be filing our defense.
Councillor Cunningham.
Two things. On May the 7th, I participated in McHappy Days at McDonald's, serving coffee to the community and that, along with other members of the community. And
Did you get any tips?
Pardon me?
Did you get any tips?
No.
No.
But I learned how to use the cash register. But on that day, McDonald's raised $2,200, and along with donations leading up to that day previously, they donated $5,600 to the Northern Coast Hospital Improvement Foundation, which Rick McChesney is a member of, and they're definitely looking at buying some instruments for Dr. Nell. Mm-hmm. So I just thought it was a noteworthy thing. Joanna and Judy and some of the staff there were fantastic. We actually had a very enjoyable time. Yeah. I think people were coming back for a second coffee just for the laughs. And the second thing is, I'm quite happy to hear today that Pinnacle is going to be coming to the next council meeting. And I just want the public to know that they're responding to councils asking them to come, so we'll see what happens. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councillor Thorkelson.
I had a couple of things. One is that I think there is a very successful salmon festival that went on during the over the weekend, and there were dancers from as far as away. I believe that Wet'suwet'en were probably the furthest away, and it was a big celebration. And of course, celebrating salmon is always near and dear to my heart, as is eating it. Or I actually don't worship it. I just like to eat it, right? And so I think it was a wonderful thing, and I'm glad, that a couple of years ago when they first came to council to talk about having the festival, I think it turned out to be a huge success, and I'm really happy that the organizers went forward with it.
Yeah, it was their second annual, and they plan on continuing.
Yes.
And you are right, they're from as far away as Babine.
Babine, yeah.
Yeah. Please go ahead, Councillor Thorkelson.
Well, maybe Councillor Carlick's not in this issue because I got something else. Okay. The other thing I like to bring up was in our information packages, and it's regarding commitment to the BC shipbuilding industry, and it talks about the number of jobs that can be created in British Columbia by expanding our shipbuilding infrastructure. And it says that the federal government has made a commitment to the BC shipping industry, and we are asking that the provincial government share the same commitment. Coordination of federal and provincial procurement is essential to bring the full benefits of shipbuilding in British Columbia. And the mayor asked me to bring this up, but lo and behold, he wasn't going to have to. This is actually something that's near and dear to my heart, and I think that, we've talked about having trying to expand local shipbuilding in Prince Rupert, and I think this goes right along with that kind of marine theme. And so, in closing, this is written by the Jim Sinclair, the president of the BC Federation of Labour, and by George McPherson, the president of the Shipyard General Workers Federation of British Columbia, and they're asking that we show our support for having a shipbuilding industry in British Columbia by requesting that the provincial government ensure that shipbuilding is done in British Columbia. And so I would like to move that we write a letter to the provincial government requesting that the provincial government develop policies that ensure that shipbuilding is done in British Columbia and that we're not building ferries and other BC ships and tugs that are going to be used for LNG and all of that kind of thing outside of our province, but that we should be developing that industry here.
Thank you. I'll second that. Okay. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Councillor Ashley, and speaking to the motion.
Yeah, and speaking to the motion, just a quick add, Skeena Queen Charlotte Regional District actually brought this up, and we've also put a same sort of thing forward. So
Good, good. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That motion's adopted. That was it, Councillor Thorkelson?
I think that was it for me.
Okay.
Other than I did want to say in this with under Spark, once you got me going, I just have to say that I hope everybody comes by the Fisherman's Hall and looks up at our gorgeous new wheelchair accessible sidewalk that's outside that Fisherman's Hall. So I just want that was in with the keeping of the Spark accessibility discussion earlier. I wasn't going to say anything there, but I got going, so I had to say it now.
Okay. Well, thank you, Councillor Carlick-Pearson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've had a few phone calls about residents who are concerned on the west side about the speeding up on Sloan, Pillsbury, and what's the other street there, Cassiar?
Yes.
Whether it's longshoremen or tugboat drivers or whatever, but the speed is out of control. And I'm not sure, like I've tried to phone the RCMP myself as a resident, and they've just more or less diverted me to Prince George office. And so, there's so many kids in that area, and they play in the streets up there. Like there's kids playing full-on hockey
it's
in the
a residential neighborhood.
and
yes.
there's a lot of areas that are blind spots in the hills and stuff. So I'm not sure what we could do as a council to request that they have more of a presence in that area. That would be great.
There's also concerns about people speeding in the Cow Bay area. There's actually a reduced speed limit when you come across the bridge, but apparently there's a lot of people that are coming down off of First Avenue East and turning down. Of course, it's a downhill grade. So, Mr. Long, if you could please mention that to the inspector here and see if you can't do something which would resonate. A little bit of enforcement in various parts of the community.
And it's usually when the ships are in and the shifts are going on for all the workers and the rush into work. Thank you.
Right. Yes.
just in regard to that, since we're talking about speed, I know we've met with truck drivers before in terms of the main drag here and the speed of some of those, but I have to say that it's not all. But there are still some that I have not seen an improvement. In fact, I'm just worried somebody's going to get hit. Just to give an example, I had just gotten into my vehicle, and literally 6 inches away from my door, this semi goes past me, just flying down. And I was just parked at Subway. So that's the kind of thing that is happening with a lot of them, and I'm not sure exactly what we can do about it, but it still is a concern. So just, I guess if we could just maybe pass it on to the RCMP to, continually watch out for that.
Certainly, and the next time it happens, see if you can get a license.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Councillor Cunningham.
Well, I noticed that traffic violations are down 44%, but I don't think the driving habits of the people in Prince Rupert are up 44%. I mentioned this countless times before. It's just gotten out of control. There seems to be no traffic control in town anymore ever since one traffic cop left that was hiding behind telephone poles all the time.
We'll leave it with Mr. Long then, certainly. Yeah. If there's nothing further, I'll give the mayor's report tomorrow, and that's on Tuesday, May 27th. Northern Health is hosting a seniors wellness forum at the Senior Center, and it's open to anybody to drop in, and it's starting at 10 a.m. and will run to 2 p.m. and they'll offer health screening and hearing screening services at the event, and there will also be presentations by Mental Health and Addictions, the Prince Rupert and District Hospice Society, the Prince Rupert Aboriginal Community Services, the Health Promotion Program, and the Victim Support Services. And the guest speaker is Betty Ciccone, who will present Just One Time and its daily practices for mental well-being, based on a book by neuropsychologist Rick Hansen. Once again, that's tomorrow, May 27th at the Senior Center from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I participated in a discussion with representatives of BC Ferries about the scheduling of service on the 3 North and Central Coast routes. They stated early indications are that ferry users are rescheduling and will adopt to the new service. Also that the vessel crews are looking forward to this new season. And of course, we've all heard that there's some dissatisfaction with the changes. The Northern Health Authority has advised there are concerns about whooping cough in the area, and they can affect babies, young and older children, as well as adults. And measures are in place in our region to deal with the illness, and education information about whooping cough is available locally at the Northern Health Authority in Prince Rupert. And Tourism Prince Rupert has announced that the location of the new office, by agreement, the Tourism Prince Rupert office will be located at the Prince Rupert Port Authority's Port Interpretative Center in the Atlan Terminal. I also attended the 2nd Annual Salmon Festival put on by the Gitmax Mackay Nishka Society and dancers. There were First Nations dancers participating from as far away as Babine Lake. And on behalf of City Council and our residents, I provided a greeting. Other participants were the Prince Rupert Chinese Association Dragon Dancers and groups from Prince Rupert, Kitsagukla, Smithers, Kitimat, Kitkatla, and Port Edward. I participated in a meeting with the Minister of Community, Sport and Cultural Development, Coralie Oakes, to discuss the $1 million planning grants available for the Northwest communities. The total funding is split evenly between the 2 grant programs and can be used to update land use plans and other baseline information required for community development planning. There was also opportunity to discuss community and regional considerations, such as the planned improvements to Prince Rupert Airport, as well as improved access to that airport and the 2 communities on the Tsimshian Peninsula. Also discussed were needed infrastructure projects for Prince Rupert, the planned new water line, and the pending requirements for sewage treatment facilities. The Minister was also interested in legacy projects, such as consideration of a salmon hatchery locally and ocean ranching opportunities, a possible student housing component for those attending Northwest Community College in Prince Rupert, and additional walking trail systems similar to the Butsy Bay Trail. I attended a recent liquefied natural gas in British Columbia conference and heard federal and provincial representatives, as well as natural gas industry proponents, speak about market opportunities on a worldwide basis, as well as the market opportunities for Canadian producers. With Prince Rupert and area being the shortest route to Asian countries on the Pacific Rim, and our moderate temperatures, which reduces the cost of converting natural gas to a liquid, we are getting a lot of exposure and consideration, which could lead to more export terminal development. The current export industry advice is that you could see anywhere from 3 to 5 LNG export facilities built along the coast of British Columbia. I attended a gathering of community members who were hosting visitors to the city in an effort to recruit additional doctors. More recently, there have been doctors relocating to Prince Rupert from Cranbrook. I'd like to remind the public that their free tipping tokens, which are found in the City West telephone book, can be used until June 15, 2014 for disposal of up to 150 kilograms of residential solid waste. And today is also the city's first cruise ship day with the arrival of the motor vessel Seven Seas Navigator. I was there along with 2 members of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to welcome the passengers to the city. Prince Rupert Special Events is looking for volunteers to assist with Seafest 2014 for such things as manning barricades, parade assistance, games attendance, sanitation, carpentry, as well as setup and takedown of tents. And if you can help, please contact Special Events. Their number is 250-624-9118. The City of Prince Rupert is also preparing their Prince Rupert Summer Leisure Recreation Guide. And the Prince Rupert Summer Recreation Guide will be delivered mid-June to 5,800 houses, apartments, and businesses in Prince Rupert and Port Edward. Local community organizations wishing to promote their services or summer activities are invited to add that information into the recreation guide again this season at a production cost of $50 for a half page. It's a recreation guide, yes, but we're also trying to make it a community services guide. And the contact is Carol Mears at 250-624-6707 before May 23rd. Businesses are also invited to advertise in the Summer Rec Guide, the local magazine that everybody wants to read to discover summer activities that are available, and businesses are asked to please call the Northern View at 250-624-8088 and ask about advertising in the 2014 Summer Recreation Guide. The last thing I have here are opportunities, and these are workshops which are being held at the Jim Cecconi Civic Center on June 2nd and 3rd, 2014. And it's all about LNG opportunities. It's one is a contractor supplier boot camp, and the other is preparing a professional bid proposal. On the first one, the contractor supplier boot camp, it's how local business can access the LNG project supply chain. And you're welcome to attend. And on June the 3rd, the topic is preparing a professional bid proposal, and it's how to prepare a professional response to a request for a proposal. Once again, the dates are Monday, June 2nd and Tuesday, June 3rd. That concludes my report. Mr. Long, have you got anything else?
Oh, don't, Your Worship.
I'll ask council to adjourn this motion, and we will reconvene subsequent. Moved by Councillor Ashley, seconded by Councillor Carlick-Pearson. Is there any discussion? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That motion's adopted. We'll have a 5-minute break.